Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Crossy's Corner. I'm Martin Cross, and with me is Sam Redgrave, newly crowned Fours World Champion. Hi, Sam.
Hi, so nice to be here.
Well, it's great to have you with us. And I should say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching this transmission. Sam, I think we were talking before we went live, and you were telling us about something that happened on your training yesterday.
Yeah, so we've been training in Marlow out of a place called Longridge, and the stream's pretty strong at the moment, and it had let open a lot of logs down the river. So I caught my blade on a log and capsized, which was fun. I think I'm the first one at Longridge this year to fall in. It was really cool, but
Well,
no dramas. I got out. I was very calm. The whole situation was very calm.
how far down the stretch were you?
Well, we were meant to be doing 18 kilometers, and I cheekily got to go in early. So we were maybe at a place at the marina, which is 6K,
Yeah.
maybe 8K in, maybe a bit more than that. So it's only a small stretch of river. It's only 5.5, 6K.
Now I know you guys are using Longridge more because you've obviously got Caversham. I mean, what for you is the sense of you using Longridge as a training base?
Well, one of the benefits is that you just don't have to turn all the time. So on our lake at Caversham, it's 2K, so we turn every 2K, and it's hard to get those longer pieces in without breaking it up with a turn. So that's one of the benefits, and it's also just a different stimulus. Like, you've got so much to concentrate on. There's bends and boats and the stream and different conditions that you necessarily wouldn't get at Caversham. So I think the thinking behind it is, the more stimulus we can have now, the simpler it gets when it comes to racing, when there's actually less going on and it's just one straight line, it. And I think that's what I definitely found useful last year.
Have you hit any of the bushes?
Have I? Oh, yeah, I've clipped one.
Yeah,
I don't think
that
I've got stuck in one yet, but I
I
have
rem-
clipped you.
I remember on that stretch, Mike Spracklin, who used to coach us, who lives on that stretch, he used to make us, one of the sessions was to race from Cookham at the top,
Hmm.
and half the team would start on one side and half on the other, and you'd race obviously against the stream. So it was a premium that you were close in the bank, but you always hit bushes. I remember that.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily the best line because it bends, and you can actually take like a quicker line if you skip some of the bends, but you just have to learn all that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, I know this has been a very interesting part of the year for you. We were talking about that just before we came on as well. Just give us a sense of some of the nice extras that you've been going to or been involved in so far.
So we got nominated by the Sunday Times Sportswoman of the Year award, and we got nominated for the Team of the Year award, but we were up against pretty hefty competition with the Lionesses and the English Roses. So we weren't expecting to win, but it was such a great evening. We got to go to the London Bridge News building,
Oh, wow.
and there was some pretty cool guests there, like Kelly Holmes and Lizzie Arnold and the Gadarova sisters from the gymnastics team. So that was really cool. Just getting to meet athletes and retired athletes and people who are doing amazing things for the sport. And Rowan, our two seat from our four, also got nominated for the Reading Sports Personality of the Year award. So we
Oh,
had 2 evenings to go to, and she won that.
oh, did she?
Yeah, she did. She got a really cool trophy, and we were all there, and we weren't expecting to go up on stage and do anything. We were just thought we were guests, but they got us up to hand out some awards, which was really fun. It was
Oh,
really cool.
did Rowan
Um,
have to make a speech?
she did, and she did it very well.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And I guess one of the other things that you've been involved in is the Basel or Basel Head in Switzerland, which sounded like a great. Was it a weekend away?
Yeah, or shorter than that, because we've had a very packed weekend because we had our Sunday Times Awards dinner on Thursday, so we had
Uh-huh.
to get a very early flight on Friday. We only got one session in on Friday when we got to Switzerland, and then it was racing on Saturday, and then we left early Sunday morning. So it was a very brief visit.
Talk to me
But
about Saturday night.
Saturday night was fun. We actually spent most of the night eating fondue. Like, when in Switzerland, why not go and get some fondue and some mulled wine? So that was really fun. We just found a cute little restaurant with the Dutch girls, and then I think they sometimes hold a dinner, but they weren't doing that this year. There was just like an unofficial after party at a bar that I don't remember the name of, but it was packed. It was lovely, and then we just
Yeah.
had a pretty tame night because we had our flights the next day, and we've obviously got training and the life of an athlete. Can't party too hard.
Yeah, I guess so. How did that crew with you? Did you win, you and the Dutch, or were you second? Oh,
No,
you
we
won.
won. Yeah, yeah. I think we were 9 seconds up on the Great Eight, which was again just really cool to be
Yeah.
like to come away with a win.
So whose idea was it to put your two fours together? I know it was because Marla Scholdenberg has been injured, hasn't she? So she wasn't able to be there. But it was it mostly the Dutch four that got silver behind you?
No, it wasn't actually.
Oh,
So it was Imke from the pair,
Inky
um,
Cleverly. Yeah,
and she just contacted us and said, would the four like to come and do Basel Head with us? Which we were pretty keen. I think the fours head was the same weekend, so we had a bit of a decision to make there. But yeah, there wouldn't really have been any opportunity for us to go next year, or maybe, and definitely not the year after, because of the Olympic cycle. So we jumped at the chance, and it was the double. So Rose and Lila,
oh, right.
and then Marta, who I think was in a pair for some of the World Cups.
Yeah.
So no, not the four, but still a pretty strong lineup.
Yeah, and definitely, particularly to beat the Great Eight by that margin, because
Yeah,
did that have the Romanian, was Simona Radis in that, and Magdalena Lobnig,
yeah, and Gemelin and
Gemellen,
the Kiwi pair. Yeah,
the
some really big names. But we thought, maybe we would have an advantage because there was 4 GB and 4 Dutch, so at least 2 halves of the boat would row the same, and they had a lot more different styles jumping in.
yeah.
But then we also thought, this might be quite hard to get us all rowing the same.
How did you decide who sat where in the boat?
We wanted to have a stroke side bow seat to help us with the turn. So there was a lot of different combinations. Originally, I think it was me and Rebecca in the stroke, and then we'd have a bucket at
Yeah,
7 and 6. But then the riggers just wouldn't work out, and we had to just do a standard rig. So I think we wanted to mix us in a little bit, so
yeah.
not have just GB and just Dutch. We wanted to have a little bit of integration. So we went with our Henley lineup, and then I just moved further back.
Okay, that's interesting. Did you get a chance to talk to Kerry and Grace at all?
No, I didn't. No, we didn't. It was quite hard to find people, and also I guess we don't know them. I don't know them well at all. So it was, yeah, we just didn't really get a chance to talk to anyone really. We all kind of went our separate ways to get ready, and it was quite a
Yeah.
long day with the sprint, because we did the sprint beforehand and then the long race afterwards.
Okay. So you've had, or you're having, because it's still this year, you're having a pretty sensational year.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I only joined the team in September last year, and as soon as we got into our cruise for the World Cups and the European Championships, it just started going so well. And I feel really fortunate to have performed when I needed to perform to get into the crew that I did and to be able to like continue that success throughout the season.
Just talk us through what you had to do to get into that boat, Sam.
Well, there's always in the GB system, there's always trials every year. So there's the November trials, and then there's December and February. And then there's more seat racing throughout the year that goes on before those trials as well, to figure out pairs combinations and to figure out where to get like a sort of ranking of where people are. So we all had to perform at every single one of those to build up I guess like a catalogue of results. And we had I didn't do April trials this year because I had COVID, I think a week or two before. So we were on a COVID recovery program. There was actually quite a few of us. And so then that delayed some of the testing after April trials because they wanted everyone to be able, as many people as possible, to test. So then we did some testing, and yeah, I came out doing very well. And I think I also had some strong performances throughout the year in other trials as well to back that up.
So are you good at everything? Are you good at seat racing? Are you good at racing in a pair? Are you good on the erg?
I would say I'm good on the erg. I'm confident on the erg.
What's your PB for 2K?
It's a 6:38.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'm quite happy on the erg. The water is actually a place where I feel my most vulnerable.
Really?
Especially in seat racing, I do take a long time to warm up to a pairs combination. But I'd like to think that once I'm in a combination, I can really get my teeth stuck into it, and it tends to do all right. I think that's also a credit to whichever pairs partner I'm with. So yeah.
Yeah, what were you going to say? Sorry, I interrupted
you. That I when I first started rowing a pair, I'd never done a pair before moving to Leander in 2019. And then once we started doing pairs, or 2020 even, once we started doing pairs, I was just like, oh, I really like this boat, actually. I like this boat class. This is quite fun. But it does take a while. So seat racing's not really my jam. I always get very anxious doing seat racing.
Yeah. Well, maybe that'll change as the years go by.
Yeah, experience. I've not got a huge amount of experience seat racing, I'm getting a lot now, but I haven't had it in the past. So just building that confidence.
So how was it for you as a relative newbie coming into the squad for the first time in September? How did you feel about that? Particularly post Olympics, I guess, where the results weren't as great as they as were hoped for.
I think my intake was very fortunate. There was quite a few of us who had done racing together or trained at Leander together in the previous year. So I think there were about 8 of us who all knew each other pretty well. And we'd already sort of got to know each other and trained with each other at Leander. So we had a sort of, I don't know, like an atmosphere, like we'd created our own little group. And so when we all went in, I felt like that was received very well. So the people that were still there from Tokyo were like, oh, this is a nice atmosphere. And we were happy to adapt as well and like learn from people. I think that's definitely was my aim going in, is that as someone relatively new, I wanted to be able to like take in as much as I could from the people around me. And that was also the girls that I was training with at Leander, but also the people who had gone to Tokyo and stayed around.
I guess that's really interesting because you were selected in that development 8, which raced in Duisburg. When was that in? Was that back in 2019?
Yeah, that was 2019.
And so some of the women in that crew that raced with you in Duisburg presumably were some of the women that went into.
Yeah, I think so. trying to remember exactly who was in it, but yeah, definitely a few of us. A couple of us went into Caversham, or went on to train at Leander, for sure.
Just talking about Leander there, because a lot of oarsmen and women join Leander. What's the advantage of being a member of Leander Club? Because I know you're on the board. We can talk about your background a little bit later on. At Norwich, is it?
Yeah.
Norwich Rowing Club. I know I've seen a picture of you with the board with your list of honours. So I know you're obviously a proud member of Norwich Rowing Club. What is it that makes people decide to join a club like Leander, and what do you get out of it?
Well, for me, I was in Norwich, quite far away from Henley, or quite far away from Caversham. And once I'd done trials and gone to Duisburg and been selected for those sort of things, it was a case of, okay, can I actually do this from Norwich? Am I close enough that if they want a sub or they want me in a composite crew, can I actually go and do that? And the answer was no, because it was too much time off work, it was too much travel, and too much money to do all that traveling. So it was then a case of like, which was the best club for me to join. And there's obviously clubs in London. There's Molesey, there's Tideway, there's UL, although you have to be a student for some of them. But I think the obvious answer for me was Leander, and that was also where I knew a couple of the girls from the Duisburg 8 were going. So, and I wanted to train in a big group. Like in Norwich, I was training with the men's senior squad, who were great. I love training with them. And it was a great atmosphere, but it's hard to do all that training by yourself in a single.
Yeah.
And to know exactly what it takes to break into the GB squad, which is, I guess, the advantage of Leander, is they get athletes, they prepare athletes to be able to do those trials and to be able to do the training once they're in there. So that was the reasons that I chose Leander. And I think maybe similar for some of the other girls is, where do you want to train and who do you want to train with? And that's who I guess everybody wanted to train with, was each other. So
well, I guess you had a good sort of with Leander, you had a great Henley in 2021, which was I'm trying to remember, it was after the Olympics, wasn't it? Henley Regatta.
yeah, it was.
And was that basically you rode in a pair with
Susie Deer?
Susie Deer, yeah, and you won the Hambledon, the Pairs Cup.
Yeah,
rowing
we did.
very long and at a reasonably very controlled rate of striking from that Tideway Scullers pair.
Yeah. I think me and Susie were never a high rating crew, and to see Tideway Scullers whipping it down the course, we were like, okay, we might need to take this up a little bit.
Was that your first experience of Henley in 21?
I had tried to qualify in the single in 2018, I think, but didn't get in. So yeah, that was my first time racing it. I was meant to race in that development 8 that raced in the Remenham in 2019.
Yeah.
But I was injured at the time, so unfortunately I didn't get to race it or go to the World Cup that year. But
so you have 100% Henley record at the moment, don't you?
I do.
So
yeah,
you've won
how long that will last.
You've won the Hambledon. You won the Remenham the same year against Brooks, was it?
Yeah, composite from Brooks, I think.
Yeah, which is pretty decent. And then this year you won the Remenham, but that was kind of more sensational, really, because it was just an amazing race.
Yeah, it was probably one of the greatest. It will definitely be in my top 5 for a long time.
We can talk about your top 5 then, but tell us about why this one is there.
It was just we'd raced the Americans in the round before, and I think we all needed a bit of a kick up the bum.
Yeah.
In the fact that I think, if I remember right, we let them get away from us, and then we came back a bit too late, and we weren't. I think we didn't settle onto our rhythm very well, and that's something that we'd been working on. So I think you know, we had chats with the coaches and our Cox Morgan, and we were like, right, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to trust it, and we're going to do it. And then to be able to execute that the next day, and in such like, it was so dramatic. We were down so much, and I think all of us kind of had that moment where we were like, oh, okay, we might not win this, but we want to, so let's give it a go. And then we just trusted the plan and trusted, like, Morgan knew exactly what she was doing. She's done Henley so many times and raced eights, spectacular eights. So it was just really easy to like trust it in that race.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic.
What do you remember about moments in that race? Can you remember any individual moments? You talked about the one where you thought maybe you guys weren't going to win, which might be one moment. I mean, what else can you remember? Because that Australian eight, for people that don't know, I mean, they had the four in there, which had 3 Olympic champions. It was a really strong crew. And I guess with the 4 in, they would have been favourites to take that, maybe.
Yeah, I think they were. I think that was I think looking at it, yeah, on paper they would have been the favourites to win, and I think we sort of were aware of that. But I just remember, like, I think our ethos is trying to be like, nobody is unbeatable, and like, past results don't always mean everything. So, and I think we knew what our potential was. We had an inkling of our potential, and what we really wanted to do in that race, or really wanted to do over Henley, was just come out and be like, GB can do a really fast 8. Like, we are capable of it.
Yeah.
We can do it. So that was really cool. Just being able to, yeah, just like say we're going to do something and then end up doing it.
So where are your 3 Henley medals? Do you keep them at home, or are they at your parents' house? Or
they're in a box. I haven't.
You
I've
haven't put them out?
No, I've got a plan.
What,
I've got a
which
plan
is
to make
what?
a shelf and to put them up, display them. But it's sort of, well, this year's been a bit chaotic, and I actually, with training camps and stuff, I haven't really had time.
So where's your world gold medal then, and your European gold medal?
They're in the same box.
Oh, they're all in a box.
Yeah, but not a box tucked away. It's a box on my shelf.
Oh,
So
wow.
if I ever want to have a look, I can have a little look.
Oh, that's interesting.
It would be nice to, you know, how people like display an all-in-one and a medal. It would.
Yeah.
I've got that in mind, so it will go up. Just maybe not immediately.
Yeah, you kind of want to wait till you win an Olympic medal. Oh, you want to win Olympic gold, don't you? I know you've said that, which is your target. How long's that been your target for, Sam?
I would say it's been a dream,
Ooh.
but it hasn't been realistic until crossing the line first at World Champs.
Ah, that's interesting.
That was probably when we all were like, oh, okay, like we might be good enough, you know? So it's still a dream. I don't think I'll make it necessarily a target until I know which boat I'm in, and if I actually go to the Olympics, you know, like those sort of things. There's still so much to happen between now and then that it seems a bit futile to have that as too much of a focus.
Well, maybe we ought to talk a bit about your season and how it progressed, and and you might be able to talk us through some of the other top 5 in terms of your races that you mentioned. You first raced in Belgrade. How much did you know about your speed and capability as a crew at that regatta?
Beforehand, we had an inkling that we could be quick because we'd done a speed order and done like a good time. But we just didn't know. And I think that's the same for most crews when they go out on the international stage for the first time. It's like very unknown. And it's kind of a nice feeling because by that point, there's no pressure. It's just see where you come, do the best you can and see where you come. So we were all extremely excited when we finished that race, when we finished that regatta. and having such like a big margin just fills you with confidence. But then obviously leading into other regattas, the more you do, the more pressure it becomes, because you've got to retain that, or I don't know, make a bigger margin on the rest of the field.
I think one of the things which I struggled to try and explain, and obviously there's not one reason for it, was watching the four with Rebecca and Rowan in it in Tokyo, where they were fourth, and then looking at the improvement and which that result kind of suggested, because you did win, but and I'm thinking, how does that happen in the space of a few months, I guess?
Yeah.
Is that something you wondered?
Yeah, but I guess like me and Heidi are obviously new to that crew, but the four of us have been doing a much different training program than what has been done before. I think also, you know, like Rebecca and Rowan would have taken so much away from Tokyo and are still improving as athletes. And I think maybe me and Heidi having maybe that more of a fresh look on the season, like we didn't do Tokyo, so maybe there's less pressure for us, and that helped our energy or what we could put into the crew. Yeah, and I think possibly that. I think the combination itself gels very well. That was quite apparent from the first time we jumped in it. So yeah, I don't think it's any one thing, but I think the determination that Rowan and Rebecca have shown, and the training that we've all done together, and they've passed stuff on to us. The learnings from Tokyo have all been passed on to us. We've obviously got new energy from having a new head coach who's really easy to get behind. He's so enthusiastic. So I think all those things, you know, lead to improvements.
Yeah, it's quite interesting talking about Andrew Randell as the chief coach, because that seems to go hand in hand. I know that people have spoken of the whether it's correct to say the intensity of the training program. I guess my understanding is the intensity of the program is higher, or the volume is higher, that you women are doing now than was the case in the run up to Tokyo.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure on the numbers and things from the program before, but I do think there's a lot more like UT1 work.
Yeah.
So not just paddling, but a bit of intent, bit more intent behind the handle, which I think that's helped a lot. I guess we've got like, our baseline has gone up, like we've moved up a bit.
Yeah. And I guess that much is apparent. How much do you do competitive in pairs, or you know, you against the quad if you're out in the four?
We've done a lot, so much more of that. On training camp, we were training with the quad lots before the world champs. And yeah, all of our single stuff is, if it can be, it will be done side by side. And it was the same with the pairs stuff when Andy joined in February. We did a lot of it side by side, and I think that does help. It takes it's hard work, especially if you're one of the slower boats that session, constantly being like overtaken or constantly being that little bit down. But I do think it helped prepare us for racing. It just took the edge off of it. Like if you don't ever train side by side in high intensity work, then it doesn't really prepare you very well for when you do have to do it side by side racing.
Who sets the technique that you row? Because you're obviously coached by James Harris in the Czech Republic at the World Championships. What's the balance between, you know, what Andy wants and what James does with you?
I think it's like very communicative. So Andy has an idea, and I think behind doors they have a lot of meetings about talking through like what they want and how they want to approach it. So I think led by Andy, but definitely James and Darren, they jump on board entirely. And I think it's not nothing crazy, like it's not some completely different technique that we're trying. So it's quite easy to just jump on board with. And yeah, so like James was coaching us throughout all of our season. But it always felt like there was that open door between us, James and Andrew. You know, like as a head coach would oversee what we were doing.
It seems like, I think also, if you take, looking at the way you guys rode, which was just amazing and really long, not too high on the rating. And if you look at the say the men's four that won, for example, similarly, very long strokes, very slick, very smooth, very synced. It almost looks like there's a coherent British technique that's emerged this year, which is quite different to some of the crews that rate, 39.40 or whatever down the course. How much are you aware of that?
Yeah, I think looking at what the men have been doing as well, I think we have, sort of settled on a fairly similar style. And that's been a push for us, is that we want length and we want drive through the water. And I think someone like me, I love to rate low. I'd rate at 28 if I could all the time. But it's that balance, isn't it, between this, like, particular crews just aren't going to do well at low rate and particular crews aren't going to do well at high rate. And I think if you want that good length, you can't necessarily rate ridiculously high. And so that kind of, I think that's what we were working on, is trying to find that length and how natural and how much speed could we get out of it? Like,
Yeah.
where was the optimum speed? And, I don't think we've necessarily completely found it, but we definitely found something that worked well. And I think the whole squad has gotten longer and the drive has gotten so much better throughout the season.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the women that you're rowing with, what their personalities in the crew are like. Heidi, Rowan, and Rebecca, and yourself too. How would you describe their personalities and the interaction between you guys?
I think, yeah, it's a really interesting mix. So start with Heidi. So Heidi's high energy. She's like your typical morning person. She's always like ready to cheer you on. She's such a motivator and such a hard worker. Yeah, she brings sort of that energy to the crew. Yeah, so that would be her, I think, if we were to sum it up quickly. And then Rowan's just very sensible. Like, I feel like everything that comes out of her mouth in the boat is like, yeah, that makes complete sense. Like, let's do that. And she's also, well, I think everyone's a hard worker, but yeah, like she's working hard, and she's like driving it. She's driving it, not necessarily by saying it, but she's driving, like, the atmosphere that she gives is that I'm working hard for you guys, so we can make this boat go quick. And then Rebecca, me and Rebecca have a lovely love-hate relationship.
Oh wow!
I think we just complete each other's sentences, No, Rebecca is the one that like keeps us all in line. It's like she's the one that will be like, no, this can be better. Let's do this. Like, let's like refocus and try this, and let's keep working at it. And that's not quite right. So let's, like she keeps us going in the right direction. And also just has a lot of experience. Like, her and Rowan both, like, they are the experienced ones in the boat, even though they might not admit it. But the calmness they give just by knowing what they're doing it has a huge impact. And then myself, I would say, I don't know, I'm a bit of a bit of a nerd, like
Oh.
one to bring the dad jokes. Probably the one to say something silly or do something silly. But I think perhaps I bring a bit of calmness to the boat as well.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of light humor and a calming effect.
That's a wonderful description. One of the things that I was going to ask you, I have a sense that every Great Four has a really solid person in the three seat, and I'm thinking of the crews that I rode in, and identifying who rode at three in those crews, and then crews with Ed Code and Tim Foster in the sort of fours up to Sydney, and then Tom James sitting in that seat. And you could say there was something about the boat moving skills, something about the cohesiveness, about the person who rode in three brought to the crew. How much of that are you aware of?
I definitely feel the pressure sitting at three. I desperately try and send whatever rhythm Rebecca's creating back. And the same from the bows of the boat. I'm trying to. Heidi and Rowan have so much hip acceleration that I'm trying to access that and trying to bring it forward. Yeah, it definitely. I feel the pressure in that respect. And I'm aware of sort of what I can. I'm starting to become a lot more aware of how I can influence the boat from the three seat, and what I can do to help Rebecca, and what I can help Rowan behind me. And I think I've definitely learned so much of that throughout the year. Like, if you put me how I was racing in Belgrade against how I was racing at the World Champs, it's so different. Like,
Oh wow!
In the things that I say, or just being able to say things, and to be able to read what's happening in a race, especially.
Do you say things in the races then?
Yeah, I'm not a big talker, so that's something I've had to really work on.
Okay.
I think the funniest thing is when I was racing the pair with Susie, way back in 2019, she would just do everything. She'd do the calls, she'd do the steering, she'd do everything, and I just sit in the bows and just push hard. And so I've had to learn that. I've had to be like a bit more vocal, and also be a lot clearer on what I want and what I'm feeling. So yeah, I do say things, not a lot of things, but yeah, just to spur us on.
I guess by the sound of it, it's Rowan that makes the kind of calls in the race that you might agree on.
Yeah, and I think during training and that, it's Rowan would do probably the majority, but we all chip in. And but during racing, yeah, like Rowan will definitely call things, and then it's just up to the rest of us to give some sort of energy, to let the others know that we're there, we're still going.
Yeah. So just going back to the season, we spoke already about that race at Henley, which obviously was just before Lucerne. How tough was that, going straight to Lucerne in a different boat to the one you just raced at Henley?
Yeah, I think we definitely felt it for the first couple of days we were in Lucerne. We had to get back into the four. And we hadn't done that much in the eight, to be in all fairness. We'd jumped in and out of it for a couple of sessions here and there. So we didn't have probably the ideal prep for the eight for Henley. And then because of that, we probably didn't have our best prep for Lucerne. But yeah, it was tricky. And I'm glad we got to do the eight, so that it was something different.
Yeah.
So that we didn't just stay in the same boat the whole time. But yeah, it definitely took a couple sessions when we first got to Lucerne to feel like, okay, this is our four again. And I think even our final didn't feel that great. It felt fine, but we were like, it just, there were things here and there that we could have done so much better. I think we felt like the rhythm wasn't quite right. But it ended up being one of our quickest time. So it just goes to show it doesn't always have to feel the best to go fast, but it does help.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really interesting. And then the decision was made for the Europeans to do the double up, the 8 and the 4 again, which I guess is quite interesting because I'm thinking, okay, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but to next season, that the British team are going to want to qualify a pair of 4 and an 8 in terms of sweep boats for the Olympics. Was that a little practice for 2023?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Andrew really just wanted to see what we could do. Like we'd been out in eights on camp, and it was on camp before April trials, and it was more a case of, I guess, yeah, let's see how fast it can go. Let's see where it sort of sits at Europeans. Like we obviously did well at Henley, and that gave us an indication against a combination from America and a combination from Australia. So yeah, it was just more of a let's see, like this is our chance to try it, and this is our
Yeah.
chance to pick up an additional medal for some people. So yeah, I don't qualification. We're not even onto those discussions with athletes yet, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's a project that we want to never just leave behind. Like there's so many talented athletes in the UK that, why we should still be learning how to make eights go fast. We should be
I
learning how to make every boat go fast.
I guess this year there were so many examples of women who were doubling up. I mean, clearly the Dutch were, a prime example, but you had someone like Simona Radis just racing the double and then jumping into the. I think she stroked the 8. In fact,
Yeah, she did. That wasn't even meant to happen, was it? Someone got injured on the way to the start line.
yeah, that was crazy. I think it is kind of out there with the pattern that the New Zealanders rode in 2019, where they won the 8. They did the pair and the 8. I guess it's more challenging with the 4 doing a 4-8 double up than it is doing a pair 8 double up.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess because more of your athletes are doubling up. So
Yeah.
and maybe the timings as well. I think that's probably why we were able to do Europeans, is that the timings of the races worked out quite nicely.
Yeah, that was really quite convenient, wasn't it? Were you disappointed with that result for the 8 in the Europeans, or was that okay for you?
I think at the time it was hard, but looking back, that Romanian 8's gone so quick.
Yeah, it has, hasn't
And,
it?
if you're going to lose to the quickest people out there, that's the best position to be in. So yeah, it was hard, I think, because we just couldn't keep up with that Romanian sprint, that Romanian finish. But yeah, it was tough, but it was still fantastic. Like it was still such a great race. Like even the closest races are often like the most interesting, and definitely the most interesting to watch, but also the most interesting to race as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was good, so good to have that experience, and to come away with a silver medal is no small feat. So I think we were all pretty happy with that on reflection.
I know what I meant to ask you. Just made me think about, because that would have been the first. Would it have been the first time you raced at Munich?
Yeah.
And you've got that lovely clear water. And I was going to ask you, that was the first time you were at the Rothsay at the Lucerne when you went there.
Yeah,
So
that was.
what did you think?
Oh, I wish every race was at Lucerne. No offense to all the other regattas, but it was so nice. And the cowbells at the finish line from the actual cows.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So cool. It was such a cool experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Switzerland's just lovely to go to anyway.
Did you get out into the town at all? Or because when we were in the team, we used to go out in the evenings for a banana split and a hot chocolate or something like that. But I'm not sure the team do that now.
No, we did get a few ice creams.
Yeah.
We obviously had to be careful because COVID was still around.
Oh,
And
of course. Yes.
Rebecca got COVID probably from the flight home after Lucerne. So, COVID was still around, so we did have to be careful. But yeah, we managed to like get ice creams and have a little wander on the first night just to stretch our legs after the flight. But yeah, we didn't go out for dinner or anything.
Yeah. So, European champion, what was that like for you?
Really cool. Just
Yeah.
really like, if I could sum up the whole year, it's really cool. But Europeans was so there was just so much going on. Like, I was lucky enough that I got to go into the village,
Of course,
where all
yes.
the other events were happening, because I had an interview with the BBC. But we got to watch the triathlon athletes coming past, and the crowds there. It just looked amazing. It's sad that we didn't get to spend more time there, and COVID again being annoying. But
Yeah.
it was really, being able to see the stadium and being able to see that village as well was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, fantastic event to do. I went out to watch the triathlon with my co-commentator Greg Searle, and we watched the BMX that afternoon,
Mm.
which was really exciting. And then went down that big hill to watch the women race at the triathlon. It's women's triathlon you were talking about, yeah?
I think so. I think that was on that evening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So, how much pressure did you feel going into the World Championships?
Yeah, a lot of pressure. But then again, not. I think probably more pressure just because we wanted to do what we were capable of, and I think
Mm,
that's what we were worried about, that we wouldn't, even if we came second or third or wherever, we just wanted to be able to have that race where we came away and were like, yeah, we did, that was everything we could have done.
mm.
um and so yeah, there was a bit of pressure, but I think in all of our meetings and our discussions, it was, look what we've done already. Like, all we're doing is going out there and trying to add another gold medal to the list.
Yeah,
And yes, we haven't raced the Australians before, but we've raced everyone else. And we do kind of know what everyone's capable of, and people can always surprise you, but we know we're capable of it. It's nothing we haven't done before. And I think that's what we were trying to keep telling ourselves, is this is nothing we haven't done before. We've raced 2K hundreds of times now,
yeah.
and done well in racing, and we know that we can rise to the pressure. We know that we can deal with that through a race. So yeah, it was all about just trusting it.
I
Um,
think being British, there was a bit of a different vibe for the championships with the Queen's funeral and all that. How much did that impact you or not?
I think it was, obviously I think we were the only sport competing
Yeah,
on the day of the funeral, which was Monday.
The Monday,
Monday.
yeah,
So that was obviously a very unique situation. But I think the way that the team handled it was very respectful. I think you come over for the
yeah,
minute silence.
yeah, yeah,
So we were all very aware, and it did add an atmosphere of, somberness. But I think, yeah, we all knew that we were there to race, and this was our one chance. And so, yeah, I think it was just dealt with very well from
Mm.
all the crews, I feel.
So, how close did you get to that row, that potential you were talking about in your performances at the World Championships?
I would say our heat. We were a bit worried about our heat, because I think potentially from traveling, maybe, or just from whatever it was, it didn't feel energetic. It felt
Mm.
quite lethargic, and so we were a bit worried that
Yeah,
that was going to be the semi-final. But then I think we are quite good at, as a crew, we're very good at having those discussions and being like, right, this is what we want to change, and then working on it in a pre-paddle and then being able to execute it in a race, or at least bring some of what we wanted into the next race. So that's what we did quite well in the semis. And yeah, I think we did have a pretty good row. I don't honestly don't remember much of the rowing.
Yeah, why do you think that is? Because people don't, do they?
Yeah, I don't actually remember how necessarily. I knew that when we got off, we're never really the quickest off the start. And we knew, like, if we were going after potentially the quickest people in the field, we would try and get them in the first 1K. So that's kind of what we were expecting. We were like, people are going to go hard. And we've just got to trust that our time over 2K can be quicker.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to inject a bit of energy into our start as well, so we weren't left too far behind. And I think that was what was funny, because we saw that our start was better, but it was still behind everyone else, because everybody else moved on a bit. So yeah, I remember that, and I remember being like, okay, that was a good start, and then looking around being like, no, okay, even though we're down, I think that was still a good start. Like,
okay.
that was a good start. And yeah, and then as we did move through the field gradually, and I think as we overtook the Dutch four, I think I definitely felt confidence by that point. I was like, okay, we're doing our good race like this. I know we're doing well now. So it was more a case of feeling where we were in the field and feeling, okay, well, the boat does feel nice. And that sort of confidence that, okay, if we get into a dogfight at the finish, I think we can do this. So yeah, I think we did have a really good race. I think we responded to what was happening in the race really well.
Yeah. And the whole medal ceremony thing.
So yeah, I'm glad I had the practice. It's just so different, like not knowing how to stand or how to wave, or I think this might have been, I can't remember if at Europeans we awarded each other the medals, but I think this was the first time that potentially the first time that we'd been given medals. So that was different. But yeah, it was so nice. We had I think everybody had family there. Like my partner was there, Heidi Rowan's Rebecca's brother was there. So that was so nice to have everyone just waiting for us at the by the medal ceremony.
And did you get a chance to celebrate? I can't remember if your final was on the Saturday or the Sunday, but did you have a chance to celebrate afterwards?
Yeah, we did. It was on the Saturday. So we did.
Oh, so you went to Prague.
After having had to be so careful.
Yeah.
For pretty much the entire year. Yeah, I think everybody was happy to be able to let their hair down.
Throw caution to the winds.
Mm.
Now, I kind of want to take you back a little bit to the start of your career, because I gather you could take the girl out of Newcastle, but you can't take Newcastle out of the girl. Is that true?
I think a lot of Newcastlers come out of the girl, but
how old were you when you moved out of Newcastle, and what do you remember of those days?
I moved away from Gateshead, is my hometown.
Yeah.
I moved away from Gateshead when I was 12 or 13.
Oh wow.
I moved down to Essex. So yeah, I've still got so many memories from Newcastle, and it's crazy to think I didn't get into rowing, so I must have moved away. I can't work out the dates, but I started rowing when I was 19 and moved away from Newcastle when I was 12 or 13. And in that time, I think maybe I was like 24 before I realized just how many rowing clubs were right around the corner from where I used to live in Gateshead.
Wow, that's
like,
crazy.
oh, rowing's like big here. Like no one really, unless you row, maybe you don't really know. But then there's like Wetherspoons named after Harry Clasper. So that's just really cool. All those things that I just never really put together, because I just didn't really know what rowing was. It wasn't in my orbit.
I gather you were one of those people who were sort of pretty good at sport in what you turn your hand to. I saw something from a PE teacher of yours who basically said,
yeah,
you put 100% into everything that you do, and that you always wanted to try out new things. I mean, have you always been good at sport?
Yeah, I think I was a really scrawny kid. I was always really tall and really skinny. And then, but I was, yeah, I loved sport. I just loved being competitive. So I was always like the first person to put their hand up to do netball or to
Yeah,
do running or to do volleyball and I think I didn't do a whole lot of sport when I was in Newcastle, but I was definitely still sporty. I was like a classic tomboy.
yeah,
And then when I moved down to Essex when I was a teenager, I got into athletics, but I also just did pretty much any after school club there was. So really into netball, really into volleyball, but would like do hockey. And I was so tall. I was like so bad at hockey. I
yeah.
think I did rugby, but I was like too skinny to move anyone. So it was, yeah, it was, yeah, I just like doing sports. I love being active and don't do that much sport right now. It's just rowing, but definitely will be doing sport for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Um, so, what drew you into rowing? Just trying something new?
So I competed at a fairly high level at athletics when I was between like 14 and 17, and I used to do cross country and 800 meters.
What level are we talking about?
So I raced at English schools,
Whoa.
and I was thinking of going to thinking of ways of how to get a scholarship to like places like Birmingham University, which is
Mm.
where a lot of athletics people go. But then by that point, I was just falling out of love with running. I think I hadn't. There wasn't. I didn't belong to like a massive club, or the club that I was part of didn't have like a massive group of ages of my age. Um, and so I just wasn't really into it. It wasn't like a team sport. You were very much out for for yourself.
Mm.
You were training
Yeah.
for yourself. You weren't training for anyone else. And I don't think that's a big driver for me. So when I went to uni, I went to UEA, University of East Anglia in Norwich, and just spent the first year really just enjoying life and not really doing much. But had always been like people would make comments and be like, "Oh, you should try rowing. You're so tall." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, maybe. Oh, I don't know." And then I went down to a barbecue at the rowing club with a friend in my first year in the summer. So, oh, yeah, these people seem really nice. This is really cool. I'll give rowing a go come
Yeah.
September next year. So my second year, I joined the club and loved it. And was, I guess, because I had run in the past, I knew I was a bit coordinated, so I picked it up fairly quickly. And yeah, and then had a great year with UEA. We didn't do anything too special,
Yeah.
but it was still fun, just training in eights all the time and
Yeah.
enjoying Norwich.
Where did Norwich Rowing Club fit in then? Was that after?
Yeah, that was after. So I never actually finished my degree. I failed after second year and had a bit of a period of rethinking and what I wanted to do. So I was actually on England Talent Pathway for a little while,
Ooh.
which is like linked to the start. It's basically
Yeah.
starts the main stuff, and then England Talent Pathway is like an
Yeah.
add-on to that. And they had an ATP centre in Norwich, which was just based at the rowing club, basically.
Okay.
So I did that for maybe 6 months. But also, I guess, because I was trying to find jobs and figuring out what I wanted to do.
You were working in a hospital, is that right?
Yeah, so that's when I started. I stopped rowing, was like, I need a job. So then I worked in a bar for a bit and then
Wow.
then joined the hospital as a healthcare assistant. And then just dipped in and out of rowing at Norwich Rowing Club. So I would say I was a bit of a fair weather rower for a lot
Uh-huh.
of my time there, but then would just come in for a big block and then leave for a little while and then come back in. And then was still working full time at the hospital. And then maybe in 2017, towards the end of 2017, I my partner who was rowing with a Kiwi guy called
Yeah.
Richard Hoare, and I was like, well, I'd like to do some stuff that you're doing. And I think maybe the couple of the girls that I'd been rowing with didn't really have a coach, I think, at the time. So I was like, well, I'll just ask him. I'll just see if he wants to coach us. And he took us out
Ah,
for a bit. And then the girls that I was training with kind of just got disinterested in rowing and had their own stuff to get on with. So then it just ended up being me for a little while. Some women would like jump in and out, but I sort of stayed with it for a good couple of years and just trained in the single. And we had a really fun year. I think 2018 was like an experiment year where we were like, right, we'll just enter the single and things. So we
yeah,
did like
yeah.
Wallingford and Met, and then we did Henley Royal. Tried to qualify for Henley Royal, but didn't. Oh, did Henley Women's,
Henley Women's.
and then did Home Countries. Just like anything that was there, we were just like, yeah, let's just throw our hat in the ring and see what happens. And then I was fairly successful that year, like as a club rower. So
Yeah,
we were like,
yeah.
and Rich was like, do you want a trial for GB? Do you want to do November trials in November at Boston? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's give it a go. And I did quite well on the erg, and then not great, but not bad in the single. And so that's when I started getting picked up by the likes of Lauren Fisher and Pete Shepherd. And that was the year I got invited to Sierra Nevada on a
Oh,
development camp. And then
is
that led into 2019, the rest of the summer, where I did bits with the development squad.
that as hard as it is for the men, the Sierra Nevada camp for you guys?
It was for the others, but I was on a very reduced program because I'd never done
Ah,
anything like that before. So I got away with it. I got the easy end of the stick. But yeah, from what I was seeing of the girls next to me, it was pretty hard.
yeah. And how important was it? You were on that, which Pete Shepherd was in charge of, I think, the pathway to Paris.
Hmm.
Um, and as such, you raced with Susie in the pair at Zabaudia, which was the third World Cup in Olympic year, 2021.
Hmm.
How important was all that to development?
Oh yeah, really key. Like, I think those sort of pathways are like indispensable. Like if Lauren and Shep hadn't have picked me up at trials, I wouldn't have gone to Leander, and then the rest of this wouldn't have happened. It was like
Yeah.
a key moment that broke me in through the door, got my foot in the door, and then they haven't been able to get rid of me. So, like that's key. And then being able to like set up projects where girls who aren't in the team but who are on the cusp or just need that extra bit of an extra year of experience, or just a race here and there, really it's so valuable. Like, I was learning a lot from the people around me. I was learning how to train with other people, because I trained in a men's squad, but I hadn't
Mm,
trained with such a big group of women in such a long time, and especially not with people who were so driven and had, like, I think most of the people I was training with had like medals at under 23s. They were
yeah, yeah.
like, felt very like, well, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be rowing with you guys. So just being able to get used to that before doing like a big trials, going through the whole trial process was really good. Like, I
Yeah.
learned a lot from my time in just in the pair with Susie and doing that Sabaudia race, like learning how to manage yourself and learning how to race internationally, was just super helpful.
That's really interesting. It just occurred to me how obviously your focus is on getting in the team for Paris and then qualifying for the games. How much of your focus is on a potential life after sport in
I
terms of
think,
it? Yeah, sorry.
yeah, right now, you know, it's definitely a thought, but it's not a priority. Um,
Are you going to do Los Angeles?
I don't know. I would not be able to say that far in advance. I'm not a long-term planner.
Okay.
I'm very much, we'll see what happens. It's worked so far. Like, we'll see what happens. And I guess I've got my experience in healthcare in the back pocket. So I can always dip in and out of that whilst I'm training, like do some more studying and maybe work towards a different qualification. But yeah, I'm not really looking. I'm definitely want to do Paris. I'm all geared up. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But after that, I wouldn't say for certain. I'm also got to take the rest of my life into consideration, I guess, because by Paris, I'll be 30, nearly 31, I think. No, 30. So then committing to Los Angeles, I'd be 34.
Yeah.
But I've also, people have done it and they're a lot older than 34. It doesn't stop you by any means, but it's just what happens to your priorities,
What do you make of Helen Glover winning the
Oh, I mean,
trials? And
yeah, she did so well. But I don't think anyone was expecting her not to do well, but to go away and win Boston by just coming back was just great. Yeah, it's great to see.
Do you think she'll be in the team this year?
Yeah, presumably she keeps on what she's doing. I can't see anyone turning her away.
Yeah. So it's going to be quite interesting. I gather as well, one of the Australian Olympic champions, is it Annabelle McIntyre, who's took a year out. I think she won the pairs at Henley this year.
Oh, okay.
With, I can't remember the name of the American oarswoman she won with, but she's coming back into the Australian four.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it looks like, competition, I guess, for places in the team and for Olympic qualifying places will be quite hot this coming season.
Yeah. I think every time it comes around to trialing and seat racing and stuff, it's always, you always feel like you're lower down potentially than you are. Like no one goes in feeling like I'm going to win this. But to have people like Helen coming back is, I guess it might be a little bit scary, but ultimately, before you've got to beat everybody, or you've got to beat, you've got to earn your seat. So if you earn your seat you've got to earn your seat against the whole team, not just someone like Helen Glover.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. And I'm hoping that we can, as a team, we can learn a lot from her because she's got so much fantastic experience. I'm sure there's plenty of wisdom up there that she's happy to offload.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. We've been talking for well over an hour now. I just think finally. Oh no, there's a couple of things. How annoying is it that another rower's got the same name as you?
So annoying because everybody thinks that he's the famous one. And obviously
which is not. Yeah, people are going to be asking him if he's related to you, I think.
Yeah, I actually I bumped into him in Lucerne, and that's the first time I've met him, so I awkwardly said hello and said, oh, I'm that girl that everybody thinks is your daughter. And he said, yeah, coaches say it to me all the time from different teams. They're like, oh, good luck for your daughter in this next race. He's like, yeah, sure. Whatever.
Yeah. I think that's going to be one that will run and run, actually.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think I'm ever escaping that.
Yeah. I think, because you're from Gateshead, of course. I think the Redgraves did have a kind of thing about Essex or in the east of England. But that's another matter. I was going to ask you finally about what you do with your time when you're not rowing, assuming there is any time.
Yeah, I don't do much actually. That's my plan this year. Is my last time. Well, I always, when I was at Leander, I worked part-time as a nanny, so that didn't really leave me to do anything else. But last year I was like, no, just need to focus on rowing. And then this year I'm looking into my options. I think it would be really cool to do something with the experience I have in hospitals. So working. I've got a foundation degree in health studies, which I can always do something with. So I would quite like to do that this year. It's just a case of sorting it out. We've got a great performance lifestyle guy that we can go and get help with that with. So that will be my plan for this year.
That's pretty cool. And Christmas home with the family, or?
Yeah, I'll be. We've got to split it, me and my partner. So we're going to head up to Gateshead and see my family up north, and then we'll probably go down south to see his family.
Okay, yeah.
And then obviously we have to do a trip to Norwich to see our friends.
Oh, absolutely. And have you been invited to the BBC Sports Personality thing?
Yeah, I have.
That's cool.
So cool. I mean, we watch that pretty much every year. So that'll be me sat at a table in the crowd. You can I'm going to get my partner to try and spot me on the telly.
I know it's sometimes it's quite frustrating how little focus rowing gets. I always get really frustrated at that, but it's a really fun event to go to, because there are so many famous people around. It's great.
Yeah, I'm hoping we bump into loads of cool sports persons.
You will do, and you have to go up and talk to them. That's it. Be proactive, kind of when you're in the sort of bar, sort of melee around before you go in or after. Just go up and nab them and
so that's
say
what
hi.
I'm not very good at. I'm very awkward. I'm very quiet meeting new people, so I'll have to push some of the other girls in front.
Take someone who is good at doing that and just follow them, and then it'll be like natural to you.
Yeah.
Sam, you've been absolutely great. It's been lovely to spend over an hour in your time. We'll end the live part of the interview now, but the very best for next season. And I'm sure if you're rowing like you did last season, then there's going to be more medals aplenty for you guys.
I hope so. Thank you for chatting to me.
Thank you, Sam. Bye-bye. Bye for now.
Bye.